Too many men are checking out when they need to be stepping up. Kent Evans is back on Manlihood to talk about why men sideline themselves and how to stay engaged in life's biggest battles and why learning from other men is the key to real growth.
This is Manlihood, the podcast for men who want to rise up and live with purpose. With your host, Josh Hatcher, this show is here to help you level up as a husband, father, leader, and man, with real conversations and strategies to help you in every area of your life.
Gentlemen, welcome back to Manlihood. This is a podcast for men where we help men become even better men. I say it that way because I believe that men are good, and I think we can help men become even better. That's what we do here. We want to help men become wiser, more gritty, and persevere through the hardness that happens in our lives. And we want us to embrace our purpose. That's what we do here at Manlihood. And I'm your host, Josh Hatcher. And today we're going to welcome back to the podcast. We had him on before, and I've been on his podcast as well. Kent Evans. I love this guy. This is the second time he's been on the show. And listen, every conversation I have with him, listen, I love him to death. I haven't had the chance to go out west and just hang out with him, but we're due. Every time I talk to him, I just feel like we're brothers. I talked to another guy who recently had a meal with him, and apparently he's small, and I'm large, and so if we did get together, I'd make this guy look like I'm like a peanut or something. But I love Kent so much, and I'm looking forward to the day we get to meet in person. But Kent is the co-founder of Manhood Journey, and he's dedicated his life to helping fathers and mentors raise the next generation of godly men. He knows firsthand how easy it is for men to step back when life gets rough, but also how crucial it is to stay engaged. So in this episode, we're going to talk about why men pull themselves out of the game when they're needed the most, and the lost art of learning from other men, and how to fight back against the urge to check out. And I know what that's like, because it's so easy when things get hard just to disassociate, to check out, to just be like, all right, I'm done. You handle this. I can't do this anymore. And just to kind of turn off and to get passive. And that's not going to help anybody. So we're going to get into that, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Before we do, I just want to remind you guys, the work we're doing here at Manlihood, I put a lot of time and effort and energy into this, and I don't ask for much. I really don't. The only thing I'm asking you to do is to consider supporting Manlihood and our mission here by buying a shirt at the Manlihood store, buying a hat so you can help spread the word. They don't cost much. Just go to manlihood.com/store. Also, if you want to, and listen, and when I'm saying support Manlihood, you're actually getting something really awesome. So do that. You can also help support Manlihood and support this mission of helping men become even better men by subscribing to Manlihood Plus, which also helps you become a better man as well. It's a cheap subscription. It's cheaper than all of the subscription services out there, and you're going to get great extra content that you're not going to get anywhere else. I give my best content away for free. I do. But there's extra content that you're going to get if you pay a small fee. You could subscribe for it at Spotify and at YouTube. So just go to those places and you click on the little button where you can subscribe to sign up, and you can put your credit card information in there and join up for Manlihood Plus. We'd love to have you be a part of that. Okay, without further ado, guys, we want to get into this episode, this conversation with Kent Evans. So if you're ready to grow, to lead, and stay in the fight, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Kent Evans, how are you doing today, man?
Great, Josh. Thanks for having me back on, man. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too. I'm glad to have you back on the show. It's good to see you, man. Things are going good for you?
Man, as I like to say, I have no major complaints. April, my wife and I have been married 29 years. We have 5 boys. They're all at various life stages. In fact, one got engaged last night. So one of my
Last
boys
night.
got engaged last night, and we love this young lady. So we're about to get our second daughter-in-law.
That's awesome. Yeah, my last daughter got married this summer.
Oh wow!
So yeah,
Congrats.
that was pretty fun. She married an awesome young man and love him to death. He's a piano player on the worship team at church, and yeah, that's awesome. So
Oh, that's exciting.
yeah, very cool. So the young lady that she's a good lady. You like her a
Oh
lot.
yeah, man. We've known them forever. We know their family really well. Yeah, in fact, this family has adopted several children, and some of them were from Ethiopia. And so even the parents and my wife and I were both all in Ethiopia together for one of our series of adoptions. So we've known this family for a long time, and yeah, they're just great people all around.
Very cool. Awesome. Very cool. Awesome. Very, very, very awesome, man. So, when's the wedding? Do they have they set a date already, or are they waiting?
No, I think it'll be 2025, like the fall, October, November, something like that. About a year from now.
Awesome. Very,
Yeah, I'm
very,
excited.
Yeah, cool. Cool, cool. What else is new in your world?
Well, let's see. We're going to hit some good record numbers this year at Manhood Journey. So the work that we do with fathers has been well received, and we're super excited about all that. Web traffic's up, email list is up, all that. Our podcast is inching up toward 200,000 downloads, so we're getting close to the 200,000 mark. And we just came out with a new book. So we just released a new book about 7-8 weeks ago.
Awesome. Awesome. I've had a couple people connect with me after hearing my interview with you guys. So, like, hey, I heard from you. Heard of you over on the Manhood Journey podcast.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah. So they wanted to connect with me after. So yeah. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, you guys are doing good stuff over there. So I really appreciate it, and it was good stuff. I also was on a Reddit forum. I'm always trying to, I hate Reddit, but I was in there and they were like asking, like, it was like, hey, what are some encouraging podcasts for men? And most of it was garbage.
Really?
And so yeah, most of there's so many podcasts out there that are just garbage. And it ranged from like the list of what everybody was naming was like, it was either red pill nonsense stuff.
Okay.
Or it was woke nonsense. Like it was like two extremes. And
Sure,
so like,
right, yeah.
I got on there and I'm like listing all of the really good men's podcasts that I listen to. And I made two lists. I made one that was like secular, but good.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So like there's Order of Man, there's Art of Manliness, like that lit, like the Great Man podcast, which is Stephen Mansfield. He's a Christian, but it's pretty secular in terms of a podcast. And then I made a list of the Christian podcasts that are good podcasts, and I made sure to list you guys in there. So,
what a guy!
I'm tried to make a good list of good men's podcasts that are encouraging podcasts for men that are like not red pill nonsense or woke garbage. So that was kind of cool. I listed you guys. I don't know if anybody will pay any attention to my Reddit comment, but
but hey, if they do, it's out there.
I listed you guys in there. So we'll see what
that's
happens.
very kind of you. I appreciate that, Josh.
Yeah. So
You're a good dude.
yeah, we'll see. I don't think who knows? Reddit's just normally it's like the worst of the worst on the internet. So
Yeah. It's an interesting space. I've not spent a lot of time out there. And frankly, it's just people will laugh when they hear this. I'm 54 years old. My wife and I. My wife
wasn't when I'm supposed to laugh. I'm sorry.
It's like the applause sign. Laughter. But that wasn't even the funny part. That's so funny that you did that. But I'm 54 years old, and I feel like I'm that guy in the movie Elf. I got nothing to show for it. I'm 54 years old, and my wife and I have been married 29 years. We have never had cable television. Never.
Wow.
We never got it. And my friends would be like, Ken, I think it's going to catch on. And what's really funny now is we're just now getting to the age where it's kind of becoming less and less relevant. Finally, now it's like YouTube and all these other podcasts and shows. And so we've kind of outlasted the whole cable TV revolution.
Do you live in a place where you have broadcast television?
No, I live on a rock. Yeah, actually, we literally have some like a $29 antenna that we got at Amazon, and it's plugged in, and we get like Air TV, whatever's in the air. So we might get some Fox Sports one weekend, or we might get the coverage of the election, maybe that kind of thing. We just have never been a big media family. We watch movies, and we'll get like Amazon Prime and that kind of thing. But I just say that because like things like Reddit or even some social media platforms, man, I should probably figure out what's going on in our country. But I got my head down doing fatherhood work, so I'm just going to keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Where we live here in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, we have never been able to, when I was a kid, used to be able to pick up over the air television, like PBS, and you used to be able to pick up NBC and CBS, and that was like it. And then gradually you couldn't get those anymore. So you only could pick up what you could get on cable. That was it. So I've never been able to pick up anything over the air. So we always, if you wanted any TV, you had to pay for it. So
there we go.
But you could get basic cable, which was like 4 channels. So you always had at least like the basic options. But
right. Yes.
But
C-SPAN.
Yeah.
You can get C-SPAN.
Oh my gosh.
Just watch
nothing like watching government television. Oh my gosh. Government's already the worst. Why would anybody want to watch it on TV?
I'm so glad people are willing to serve, but buddy, watching it on television, give me a break.
I'm not even sure I'm glad they're willing to serve.
I'm going to put a camera up down here in my home office, and I'm just going to call it Kent Span.
Kent Span?
I'm just going to let people watch me return emails and sign books.
I think it'd be more interesting to have like a camera, like watching them filling potholes. At least you could see them doing something worthwhile with government funds.
I like that. That's a great idea. There we go.
Anyway. So, tell me about this book that you've written. It's about sitting on the bench, right?
Well, it's about not doing that. So like, the book is called Don't Bench Yourself, and it came out of, Josh, I'll probably speak at a dozen events a year, maybe 15, different men's conferences, churches, etc. And a couple of years ago, I had spent hours and hours preparing for a men's conference, and it was maybe 165 guys in the audience. And I only say the amount of time I spent preparing because of how this happened. So we did 4 hours of presenting over 2 days. And then at the end, the guys said, "Hey, Kent, will you do Q&A with the audience?" I'm like, "Sure, let's go." So Q&A. So we open the floor, and this first guy says, and I know some of your listeners have a faith-leaning background. They may be Christians or something. I'm a Christian. You don't have to be a Christian to appreciate what I'm about to say. But what he asked was a question that a lot of faith adhering people will ask at some point in their life. And frankly, they might ask it 100 times in their life. And this guy raised his hand, and I said, "Yeah." And he said, "What do you do when you feel like you're moving backwards as a Christian?" And I think that's a great question. I think, even if you're not a Christian, what do you do when you feel like you're moving backwards as a dad or as a husband or as an employee or as a guy managing your finances or in your golf game, whatever. And so I just instantly, Josh, came up with this idea right there as we were doing Q&A. And I said, "Hey, before I tell you what you do, can I tell you what you don't do?" And he goes, "Sure." And I said, "Can anybody remember Derek Jeter?" Now, I used to like watching a lot of baseball when I was a kid. In fact, talk about cable television. The only channels we had that were reliable were like WGN Chicago. So I watched the Cubs my entire childhood. And I remember watching Derek Jeter play baseball, famous New York Yankees shortstop. And I said, "What did Derek Jeter do when he made an error?" I'll tell you what he did. He threw his glove down. He took his jersey off. He took his hat off. He stomped on it. And like a baby, he walked off the field and sat in the dugout and he benched himself. And they all kind of chuckling and laughing because they know I'm just goofing off. And I go, "No, that's not what he did." Derek Jeter did not bench himself. And nobody in that stands wanted him to go to the bench, even though he just made an error. And I said, however, that is what a lot of men do. A lot of husbands, a lot of dads. You make an error or you make a series of errors and you go, "You know what? Screw it. Instead of trying to continue to be a loving husband, I'm just going to go, spend some more time on social media and go out for, cocktails till all hours of the night. And I just won't come home anymore because I can't be a good husband. So why try?" Or I've lost the trust of my children because I've been an angry jerk. So why even try to be an engaged father? I'll just let the internet raise them. And, I might go to their wedding when they're older. And I said, but as you walk off the field, it's like your wife and your kids are sitting in the stands and they're crying and they're wishing you would not walk off the field. The coach didn't bench you. The team owner didn't come down and bench you. You did that. I do that. That's what we do. And I go, we've got to stop. Don't bench yourself. And what's crazy is I'll speak at these events, and normally you speak at a men's event, and when you're done, it's like roaches when the lights come on. They just scatter. No one talks to you. It's like the weirdest kind of vacuum. And I've talked to a lot of guys who do what I do, and we all have kind of the same experience. That one conference, I had a line of people who wanted to tell me, man, I've been benching myself. And they had some story. And there was something about that turn of phrase that I didn't plan on using that guys just went, shoot, man, that's what I've been doing. I benched myself as a husband. I benched myself as a volunteer at my church. I benched myself as a dad, and it resonated. So I hung on to it, and then a couple years later came out with a book about it.
It actually kind of reminds me of something that I actually just recorded an episode today, because I feel like we're on the front lines, dude. And we get a little bit of attack against us. And then we just fall on our sword and we just lay there. And then we let everybody else, we let the hordes go right over us. And then they go and they attack our wives and our kids and everybody else. And we just sit there and we numb ourselves with our drugs and our porn and our booze and our video games and our sports and our whatever, and it just takes us right out.
So tempting.
And it's constant. And all of, our candy bars, you know what I mean? All of us do it, dude. Every one of us, we all have our vice, and we just let whatever, our apathy. Yeah. Man. And we just give in. The enemy's strategy to take out the men is very simple. We just bench ourselves.
Yeah. And as
shoot ourselves in the foot.
As I started to work through the content, I wanted to do something. And if a guy's listening, I wanted to create a really, really short book. And so I went to a couple places and I asked some guys who I know who are authors, came up with a word count. And so the book itself actually is about less than 100 pages. It might be 98 pages of reading. Now the book is 130 because I got some front matter and some endorsements and some back matter. But the actual content of the book, some guys have told me they've read it in 2 hours or 3 hours. And so it's meant to be a really short book. So what I tried to do is I put it in two big sections. The first section is 4 reasons we tend to bench ourselves, 4 things that get in our way, and then 4 steps to take to get back in the game. So it's really simple, very, very simple outline, 4 reasons we bench ourselves, and 4 steps we can take to either stay in the game if we're in the game or get back in the game if we have benched ourselves.
Nice. So what's the response from the book been? Are people relating to it?
Yeah, this is book number 4 for me. And each of the books have been a little different. This one has a wider scope. It's not a pure men's issue kind of book, in the sense that we've had a lot of ladies read it and tell us it was really helpful and handy. We've had my son, who is 25, one of my boys, a friend of his who's 25 and single, young guy, grabbed a copy of it and wanted to read it because he felt like that's where he was in his music career, was just on the sidelines. And so we've had a much wider footprint for this book so far in terms of who's reading it. And frankly, man, it's opened a lot of doors. The content itself is striking a chord that the first few books I did were either fatherhood specific or very manhood specific, and they were kind of more narrow in terms of their scope. This one's a bit broader. I think everybody has experienced at some point the temptation to get out of something important and do something unimportant, because that's benching yourself.
Right.
If you're trying to become like the world's best Fortnite player, and you're a 47-year-old dad of 2 teenage kids, bro, knock it off. Grow up, man. I mean, seriously, like, I apologize if I offend you, but you have much more important things to do than level up in your favorite video game. And so what we found is there's been quite a good reception for this book. Better than my first 3.
You know, I don't know if you need to apologize for offending. That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
I don't want to be harsh. I don't want to be harsh.
Yeah, but I don't know if you need to apologize for offending that person. I've been starting to like, that's like I was saying that to somebody earlier too. I'm like, I don't know if I want to apologize for hurting your feelings. If that hurts your feelings, like, I don't want to, I mean, I apologize if I'm being mean. I don't mean to be mean.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Like it's not my intention to be mean. And so if I'm being mean, I'm sorry for that.
Right.
But I'm not wrong. You shouldn't be trying to be the world's best Fortnite player if you've got 2 kids at home. You know
what's interesting, man, when we started our Manhood Journey, the fatherhood ministry that I lead about 15 years ago, when we first started, and this has turned out to be true, we would say a lot, and we still say this. The problem generally is not the 12 or 14-year-old child. It is the 45 or 46-year-old disengaged father who's not leading in the home. That doesn't make everything go away, and sometimes kids just do crazy stuff. However, you know, you show me, an elder friend of mine at our church one time said, man, because he did a lot of restoration cases, so people who had broken lives would come to the elders and need something. And he goes, man, if you show me 10 struggling marriages, I'll show you 9 husbands who are not leading in the home. It just is so rare that just the wife is insane and crazy. It's so rare. It's usually that there are things the guy is putting above his marriage or his fatherhood in the home. And that just gets in all kinds of trouble, man, all kinds of trouble. So I hope what the book does is help guys who want to be in the game stay in the game. And by the game, I mean the important things of life, the things that matter. And then I hope if someone is on the bench, if they found themselves on the bench, I hope it provides them with, you know, the pathway to get back in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and that's something too, I think that a lot of, just when you talk about that leading in the home, right? I think a lot of people get the wrong impression about that. Like that doesn't mean that you're like standing around barking and orders at everybody.
Gosh, no, that's not leadership.
Yeah, no,
That's
that doesn't mean that you're being like that you're running around like you're the one calling the shots about everything. That means that you're serving,
Yeah,
that you're loving,
that's right.
that you're bearing responsibility, and I think that's really the key, because you know, like that you're going first. You know, like if you're going first and you're bearing the responsibility, I think that's really where the key is. Like, I don't think your wife is looking for you to necessarily tell her what to do. I think she's waiting for you to just show her.
I remember years ago, man, I did a Bible study on the character in the Old Testament, a guy named Samuel. And he's a really interesting study in leadership, and it changed my perspective on leadership. I used to think of leadership as like the visual in my head was a dude at a podium or on a stage, and he was telling people what to do, like he's facing those he's leading. And that's kind of how I thought about it. That's probably Western mindset, American culture. There's a little bit of that. And certainly you do have to tell people how to do things occasionally, depending on your context. But Samuel, what he did is he was turned and faced the other direction. The people Samuel was leading saw his rear end. They saw his backside, because he was going to God in prayer. He was going toward the enemies, and he was doing things where he's going a certain direction, and he was inviting the nation of Israel to follow him. And so I just remember that it shifted my paradigm, where the leader should be headed somewhere, and he should be encouraging those to follow him. It's like the book Point Man, Steve Farrar wrote back in the 90s. That's a great book for men. And it's all about being at the tip of the column in a military formation where you're the guy out front. You're the point man. You're the dude leading the group through the forest, and you're the one at the most risk, but you're also the one taking the most responsibility.
Yeah. Or then even in the Newer Testament, when you've got Jesus washing feet and then laying his life down.
Yeah. Exactly.
Where it's even more humble than that. So, yeah. And yeah, because I think a lot about that when I think about this, or, and then that's another thing too. Like, I know that leadership is not necessarily lordship either, because it's also shared. My wife and I lead our home together. We work together at that. That's something that we also, like, we make decisions together. That doesn't mean I think that's the paradigm and the perspective that I think we have to work on. Like, it's not a matter of like I think that's the problem, that we have this picture of that it's this patriarchal concept of I'm the man, so you do what I say. And that has created this, well, she's not listening to what I say, so I'm not leading properly. And then they give up, and it's like, then they check out because she doesn't respect me. So I'm just going to check out. Well, then she respects you even less. And then you're
downward spiral, right? The death spiral.
Well, it's not going to get any better then.
Well, and again, I don't know the total faith makeup of the listener, but in the New Testament, you see Paul say, "Follow me as I follow Christ." So yeah, there's a leadership component to that, but there's a fellowship component. And so I've told my boys for years, I don't want to be your hero. That's not my objective. My objective is not to. I'm not trying to be your hero. I don't want to be your anti-hero, but my job is not to be my kid's hero. I'm not the example of manhood perfection. Jesus Christ was the example of manhood perfection. A friend of mine named Dan Spader, who wrote a bunch of books and taught a lot for decades, used to say, Jesus was man the way man was intended to be. And I just think, wow, that is a great line, man. That is a great line. So again, someone who is not a Christian may have some issues with that, but for the Christian, the model man is Jesus Christ, period. That's the model man.
Yeah. Well, like I said, even if you're not a Christian, I think there's things that they could learn from that.
Sure.
And we can still learn from the concept of looking at someone with character, right?
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
yeah, no, I think it's good to learn from, for sure. So let's look back at your book a little more. So if we're working on not benching ourselves, what are some ways that we can avoid getting into that situation?
Yeah. Yeah. The 4 enemies we point out are fear, shame, criticism, and impatience. Those are the 4 enemies, or the 4 temptations to go and bench yourself. So like the example that I use in the book, Josh, is when I was about 16 or 17 years old, I played baseball, and I had no baseball future. I was a decent player in the rec league sense. I'd lead off and, bat 250 and get on a lot and steal, but I was not going anywhere with I didn't have a baseball career of any kind ahead of me. But in the summers, I would usually play against, I remember there was a batting machine near our home, and the highest speed that batting machine could throw was 74 miles an hour. I remember that. And when you could hit a 74-mile-an-hour pitch, you're feeling pretty good. And you're like, man, all right, here we go. It's happening. But there was a kid in our league that summer, I was either 16 or 17, who could throw 85 miles an hour. And there may be people at home going, man, it's just 11 miles an hour different. Yeah, well, it made the ball look like it was the size of a pea. You couldn't even see it, man. And this guy didn't even have great control. So half the time the ball went past the catcher or behind you. Not only was it coming at you 85 miles an hour, you had no idea where it was going to go. And I remember being deathly afraid to bat against this guy. Fear is real, man. I wanted to literally stay on the bench. And I remember we played 3 whole games. And by the 3rd game, so my 8th or 9th at bat, I finally caught up to a pitch and hit it. And bro, it was 3 or 4 feet from being a home run. It went so far because it was coming at me so fast. So all you had to do was get a bat on it. But I remember I struck out 7 or 8 times, and then I finally hit this bomb to center field. Still, I was out. I went 0 for 9, but I got better and better and better and closer. And then I would foul some off, and then I would hit one and ground out, and then I hit this deep fly to center. And so I just remember learning that lesson when I was younger, that things that scare us don't need to sideline us. And fear can't be our guide. Fear can't be our guide. And what we'll do is we'll get in there and we're going to fail, but we're going to kind of like fail forward, right? We're going to fail enough where we start to figure it out and we get better and better and better. And then amazingly, guess what? A 75-mile-an-hour pitch looked like a piece of cake because I had been stretched to do something harder than I thought I could possibly do. Then when I came back to what used to be my benchmark, it was super easy to hit a pitch in the mid-70s the rest of the summer. And so it taught me a lesson about fear. So we talk about fear in the book. We talk about shame. You know, if you do go give it a try and then you don't do well and everybody around you sees you screw it up, then you're going to be susceptible to shame, and fear will cause you to not play at all or to avoid challenge. Shame will say, I told you so. Yeah, I told you not to try this. So you try it, and then you realize, I'm no good at that. And then criticism is the third enemy we talk about. That some criticism is good, man. When April and I first got married 29 years ago, I was not very responsible. I didn't pay bills on time. I wouldn't go get my oil changed. Like I wasn't even very honest about a lot of stuff. And so I was a mess, man. And there were a couple years there where she was in my grill in a good way. She was, and some guys would chalk that up to, oh, my wife won't leave me alone and she nags me all the time. Bro, maybe you need to be nagged, right? Maybe you're irresponsible. Maybe you don't pay your bills. You know, maybe you should get your health in order. Maybe you should call your mom once in a while. Like, you know, there are things that criticism isn't always evil. Criticism isn't always bad. Proverbs talks a lot about the wise and the foolish, and the difference between them is the wise man hears criticism and learns from it. The fool doesn't even want to listen. So don't be a fool. But criticism can just weigh you down. It can just be this rain that drips and drips and drips and drips. And then the last one we talk about is impatience. You can try something for a day or a week or a month or a year, and if you don't get the results you want, you just quit. And so you have a teenage child, and they come home from school, and you say, how was your day? And they say, fine. And you say, oh, teenagers, they just won't talk to you. Bro, that's a lousy question. That's a terrible question. And you deserve to get a one-word, flippant, no excuse answer because your question is terrible. Instead of chalking that up and going, I've been trying for a year and she just won't open up, don't get impatient. Don't get impatient. Instead, change your approach a little bit. If you lose every chess match you play in 4 moves, make some different moves, man. Like, stop making the same opening moves. So when you have children in the home, you can become impatient with your connection with them. Don't get impatient. You got to keep trying to come at the topic from a different angle. And there's 15 better questions you can ask your teenage kid, and you'll find they will unlock better. And so we talk about fear, shame, criticism, and impatience. And I'll bet one of those 4, if not all of those 4, resonate with whoever's listening to this show today, because it's true for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, boy, I like that, talking about when your kid, that question that you ask, how's your day? Yeah, it's the worst question. And we ask it for grown-ups too, don't we? It's the same thing. I think my wife asks me that question every day when I get home, and I say the same thing. It's long. How was your day? It was long.
Yeah, right. Right.
That's all I want to say. I just want to eat dinner. What's for dinner? You know? Yeah, man. Oh, wow. Okay, so we talked about what keeps us on the bench. So how do we get off the bench? And how do we stay off the bench?
We talk about a 4-step process in the second half of the book. And I'll fly over it, and then we can dive as deep as you like on any one of the 4. Step 1 is call it out. So, and what we mean by that is be really clear about the problem. Be really clear about the problem. Secondly, make it right. If it can be fixed, go fix it. Some things can't be, but a lot of things can be. Third, we're going to leave it behind. So we're going to call it out. We're going to make it right. We're going to leave it behind. Don't live in the past. Don't keep dredging up yesterday's failures. Let's move on. And then fourth, let it transform. I'm 54. I think I'm a better husband than when I was 44. And when I was 44, I think I was a better husband and a dad than when I was 34. And my wife would agree. And so for me, I want to be on a growth trajectory, which means I want my errors and my mistakes and my wins and my victories to help me become a better version of myself over time. You know, the Christian would call that sanctification or growth or spiritual growth. For me, I want to grow, man. And so I've got to be able to let my life situations transform. So we call it out, we make it right, we leave it behind, and we let it transform.
So the calling it out, that seems pretty understandable. I think the letting it transform part. So let's talk about that part.
When you are confronted by someone, so for example, have you ever done brain surgery, Josh?
No.
Okay, so if you were to call me and say, man, I really got a lot of opinions about brain surgery. And I'm like, has Josh ever done brain surgery? Like, I don't think he has. Your opinion on the topic carries no weight at all, right?
Right.
Because I'm like, dude, what's this crackpot talking about brain surgery for? But if you were to call me and say, hey, man, I got some ideas, which you've done this for me personally. I got some ideas on, how to grow your podcast. I've got some ideas on how to interview people. I'd be like, all ears, because you have credibility in that area, whereas in brain surgery, you may not. A lot of guys especially will look for input and feedback everywhere but their own home, which is ironic and frankly inefficient because the people who have the most credibility for who you come across as are the people who deal with you the most. That's your wife and kids. And so the let it transform part is, I'll tell a brief story. And this kind of encapsulates most of the steps, if you will. One day, my kids and I were rushing to get to a baseball game, and I'm the coach, and we're hustling and trying to get there early. And we're rushing to get in the car, and I've got two boys to get in the car, 9-year-old and 12-year-old. And I'm barking at Titus and Timothy saying, hurry, get in the car. Let's go. Come on, buckle up. Let's go. I'm in a rush, as is my custom. That's not healthy, but I do it a lot. And so I'm rushing the kids to get in the car. So we get in the car. We go to the game. We come home. A couple hours later, my wife says to me, hey, I need to tell you something that you're not going to want to hear. Now, I don't know if we have any women sneaking in, listen to this podcast, even though it's called Manlihood. That is a great way to talk to your husband. So, ladies, take note. That is brilliant. Number one, we're alone. We're in private. And she's setting me up, right? She goes, hey, I need to tell you something you're not going to want to hear. And I'm like, okay. It's like, this is going to hurt a little bit, right? So you brace for impact. And so I'm braced for impact. She goes, when you guys were going to the baseball game earlier today, Timothy opened the hatch in your SUV, and one of the iPads that you use for the ministry fell out and landed on the driveway. It's probably broken, and he shoved it back in the trunk, and he closed the trunk. And I was like, wow, I didn't even notice. And I said, I don't care. It's an iPad. We'll buy another one. Like, that's not a big deal. I don't know why you think I didn't want to hear that. She goes, no, that's not the part you weren't going to want to hear. And I'm like, oh, all right. She said he shoved it back in the car, and he sat back in the car, buckled up, and y'all went to the game. He asked me if I would tell you about the iPad. And I looked at her kind of with my head cocked a little bit, and I said, why? And she goes, he was afraid that you were just going to get madder and you were going to yell at him. Okay, now freeze for a moment. I got a choice in that moment as to how I'll go back to this first step. We're getting back in the game, and we're going to call something out, and we're going to be ruthlessly honest about our failures. So one way to process that is to go, well, I'm the coach. I got to be there early. These kids need to learn. They got to move, man, and they weren't listening well. And I am sometimes very zealous about keeping a tight schedule, and I run a tight ship around here, and they got to understand. And I just offload all the responsibility to my children. That would be moronic, foolish, inaccurate, and immature. Instead, what I did in my head was I went, so I have created an environment around my house where I'm in such a hurry and I can be angry when we're moving fast, so much so that my own 12-year-old child doesn't want to tell me something. That's called failure as a father. That is, in fact, the definition of failing as a father. I created an environment where my own kids don't want to be honest with me. Now, if I can say that out loud and go, that is not okay. And that is not on them. That is on me. I'm the leader of this environment, and I've created an environment where people don't want to tell me the truth. Okay. Now I can go make it right with him and say, bro, Dad was wrong. And not only was I wrong last night, evidently I've been wrong more than once because I've created a spirit around here where you're concerned to tell me the truth. I need your help. You tell me the truth no matter what, and I'm going to react better because I owe that to you, and I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Now I've made it right or begun the process of making it right. I'm going to leave that behind. I'm not going to live in the shame of that. I'm not going to worry about it every single day, but I'm going to let it transform me, and I'm going to become more patient. I'm going to listen better. I'm going to not react in anger. And that whole curve allows me to let it transform me. Because frankly, even though that's true, and this was true 6 months ago, ironically, as I was writing this book, this is when this happened. It's less. I'm less like that than I was 10 years ago. My wife would attest to that. However, obviously, I still have a long way to go. And so what I want to help men do, if you're listening to this show, I want to help men be able to accurately diagnose their own failures and their own role in the process. Because if they can't do that, they're never going to transform. You will be the same guy at 55 as you were at 25 if you blow off the feedback of those around you and those closest to you, and you lay it off on other people. You got to be able to look in the mirror and say, man, this one's on me. This one's on me, and I'm going to change.
I think a lot of guys don't think about the fact that they should be different at 55 than they were at 25. And the truth is, you should be different at 55 than you were at 25. And I think that's a challenge that we've all got to be honest about. And I think that a lot of guys too have the hard time being honest about the fact that, okay, so the iPad falls out of the car and breaks, right? And that is an accident that could happen to anybody, right? That's not the kid's fault that the iPad falls out of the car and breaks, right? Whose fault is that the iPad fell out of the car and broke, right? Like, that's who didn't secure the iPad in the car, right? Who didn't have
probably me. I mean, if I think about how it got in there, it was
right.
Probably me.
Who didn't buy the case for the iPad with the
Right.
cover to protect the iPad, like all those things, right?
Sure.
And we normally would be mad that the kid dropped the iPad. You know, we might actually have yelled at the kid when the iPad broke. Like if you had seen it, would you have yelled at him that day when it happened?
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't have probably gone off on a tirade, but I probably would have been like, what is going on? Put the stupid iPad in the car. Come on, let's go. Like, I'm sure I could have reacted like that in a skinny instant.
Yeah, I probably could have too. Easily. Yeah. Or at least been angry, and a 12-year-old doesn't know the difference between, right?
Exactly.
Well, heck, I mean, 45-year-old wife doesn't know the difference between Josh is angry and Josh is angry at me.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
Because like I have to say I'm angry. I'm not angry at you, because it comes across that way. Like, it's just easy for that. It just comes out that way. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
So I have to just recognize that's the way this works, you know? And a 12-year-old kid's not going to know the difference, you know? So, yeah, I get that. I can see that.
Yeah. And I'm growing through that as a dad. And back to your point about guys, whether they know they should grow or be different. I remember that book. I never read the whole entire book. I read the synopsis and I got the point. And it was from Carol Dweck about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And it's the idea that, I am who I am and I'm going to be this way forever. So feedback is a problem because you're attacking my character. That's a fixed mindset. It's like an ungrowth mindset. Whereas the growth mindset says, hey, I am who I am today, but I'm going to be better tomorrow. A year from now, I'm going to be better. Therefore, feedback becomes a fuel, becomes an asset. So in the fixed mindset, we see feedback as a threat. And in the growth mindset, we see feedback as an ally. And that's really important. And to your point, if you've just decided to be the same guy till you die, well, yeah, then feedback's going to drive you crazy. It'll always feel offensive to you. But that's also called being a fool. So let's not do that.
Yeah. And I see that a lot with a lot of people because I interact with a lot of people on the internet, right? And I'm always amazed at how often people get defensive when they hear or encounter or see suggestions that they change or that they change their mind or that they be challenged a little bit. And I'm always just kind of amazed at the way that they react to it and act like who are you to tell me? And, and it's like, we need to be a little bit less defensive and a little bit more open to suggestion sometimes. Now, I mean, sometimes we need to be a little gentler when we correct people, I think too, but the truth is we need to be open to suggestion because sometimes there's people who have good advice for us. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I want to be known, we all need to be humble enough to know that we can be better. I know that.
Well, and certainly, and what's interesting is I have been a Christian now for 35 years, and I don't know another way to process some of these behaviors. So I just got to look at it from that lens. So if you're listening and you're not a Christian, sorry, but for the Christian, that shouldn't even be a question. Like if you're, there's a whole big get out of jail free card on becoming a better person. If you're not a Christian, well, then I don't even know what your underpinnings are for why you should get better. Who cares? Is it just is it the ether or is it the metaverse who tells you to be better? I don't know but for the Christian, we're supposed to be increasingly sanctified. We're supposed to have qualities that increase in measure. 1 Peter. So that for me is an easy equation. And then the challenge becomes, okay, how do we do that? If we agree that we should be growing, then what are some of the mechanics? And I hope that this book in particular and other things that we've done and your podcast, my podcast, I hope those are pieces of the puzzle for guys that do help them from that starting point of, I do want to be better. Awesome. Let us show you how we might suggest you try that.
Constant and never-ending improvement.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it gets tiring.
Oh man,
but
it does indeed. But it beats the alternative, right?
Yeah.
Stagnation stinks.
Yeah. Well, and there are times when you feel like I don't want to say fall off the wagon, but there's times when you slow down, and there's times when you do move backward, right? Like we talked about earlier.
Absolutely.
There's times when you are moving backward, or when you get stagnant, and you're like, okay, this does not feel good.
I met a guy years ago, Josh. I worked with this guy named John, and at the time I worked with him, he had a really successful business, and he was making big money. And he ended up selling that business and made a ton of dough. But he told me the story of his business curve, and he said, "Oh yeah, you're seeing the good side of it now." He goes, "But there was a time when I was 7 figures in debt in my business career." And the way he used to say it is, he goes, "Back then, all I wanted to be was broke." He goes, "I just wanted to get back to zero." I didn't even want to have any money. I just wanted to be broke. And I just think the language there is so funny because even that would have been progress, right? Even going from 7 figures in debt to 0 is massive progress. And then he surpassed that, by lots of millions. But anyway, I just thought that was such a great. So even the guy who's listening who feels like he's way behind, you're down 100-0. Man, kick a field goal. Let's go. I mean, let's lose 100-3. Like, let's at least make some progress, right? And for me, if sometimes I've hung on to that, that idea that I do just want to be in motion, have the legs moving, even if sometimes it feels like I'm not making a whole lot of progress.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Moving forward is better than not moving at all or moving backward.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because, going up to bat's better than sitting on the bench. Striking out's better than sitting on the bench, right?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, my objective when I played Steve that summer, his name was Steve Dixon, the kid who could throw in that mid-'80s. I just didn't want to die. Like, I was like, hey, if I go up to the plate and I come back with my bat and I can still see and I got all my body parts, we're going to call that a win, man. I don't care if I strike out. And that was so true. People think I'm overstating it to like sell some books. That was so true because, bro, there were times when his pitches would hit the backstop. Like even the catcher couldn't catch them. Like they just flew past everybody. And so you're like, oh my word. So yes, objective number 1, come back to the dugout intact. And then we built from there. I'm gonna try to foul one off. This time I'm gonna swing. I took baby steps, baby.
My brother played Little League, and he found we were cleaning out the church basement, and he found like an old 1950s Mickey Mantle wooden baseball bat. He was so excited. He was like, I'm going to play with this at the next Little League game. So he brings this old dry rotted wooden baseball bat to the game. And he steps up to the plate and he hits that ball so hard. And that baseball bat shattered into a million pieces and just like hit the pitcher. It went everywhere, like all over the infield.
And the sad part is, if it was in fact a Mickey Mantle bat, it was probably worth $1 million at like Sotheby's. But nope, not anymore.
Not like a Mickey Mantle bat, like a Mickey Mantle model bat. Like it was like wood burned with his name on it, like bought at like the hardware store with like a stamp saying, not owned by Mickey Mantle, but like a Mickey Mantle brand bat.
You get splinters from this thing.
Yeah. But there was hunks of bat like
that's fantastic.
I remember like the pitcher throws the ball, he swings it, and then the pitcher's eyes go because that bat just went everywhere.
Stuff coming at him.
It's like a toothpick factory, man.
That's amazing.
I think my brother cried. He was like, no. He thought it was actually Mickey Mantle's bat, but, he was 12, so.
What does he know? What does he know?
Your story just reminded me of that, so I figured I'd share that story.
That's great.
So tell me a little bit about, I know we've talked about this when we had you on before. Tell me a little bit about the work you're doing at Manhood Journey.
Yeah, we started about 15 years ago, and our intent was to try to help dads lead their children, specifically their sons. And so the very first thing we ever did was a Bible study for dads to do with their sons. And then you kind of fast forward to today, and we've produced about 75 assets, digital courses, books, podcast episodes. We got a couple hundred podcast episodes. And we have a Godly Father assessment if you want to know where you are on that journey. We do Bible studies. I've written 4 books now. And so we create a lot of resources for dads, digital courses, etc. And the last we checked, man, we've reached almost 2 million dads in the last 14, 13 years, somewhere in the world with some piece of content. When you look at like Bible app reading plans and websites and podcast reach and all that, and newsletter, we have a weekly newsletter. So all that stuff, man, we're trying to fill the digital bucket with encouraging content for dads, and they seem increasingly willing to snag it and download it and reach out to us. I get a couple emails a week from somewhere in the world telling us that what we do matters, which is absolutely fantastic. So we exist to help dads disciple their families, and if that's you, you can come to manhoodjourney.org, and most of our stuff's free. Come snag something and grow and improve.
Awesome. Well, I know it's good content because I've been able to check it out as well. And I've seen some of the stuff you guys are sending out. And yeah, it's definitely good stuff, man. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Hey, feelings mutual, man. Thank you for what you do at Manlihood, bro. It's good to know you, and I love what you're cranking out.
Well, we get to have a lot of fun doing it. I know that.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
I get to talk to some pretty interesting people, you yourself included. And I always like talking to you because I feel like I'm talking to like my cousin Kent, even though we're not cousins. You just always feel like a cousin. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. I love that, man. Oh, man. Cousins, they're great.
You seriously, you feel like a cousin. So
That's awesome.
I don't know.
Unless you hate
do.
your cousins, in which case I'm offended. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
No. Our work is kind of like cousins. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think we're working, on two sides of a similar coin. And we're trying, man. One of the things we have challenged with in our line of work is there's just so much need for what you and I are doing that sometimes we're tempted to get in some other lanes and do more and out punt our coverage kind of thing. And what we're really trying to just stay focused on is the father, not parents, not men. That's not our sweet spot. Our sweet spot is a dad. And frankly, we're gonna be more helpful to a dad who happens to have a faith leaning or Bible friendly or Christian friendly viewpoint on the world. That's not an exclusive club. Come on over. Water's warm. I don't care what you believe, but you're gonna find a lot of Bible verses in our stuff, whether you kind of like it or not. But we're just trying to stay in that lane because that's what we feel like is our call and is our job.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's I've told people a lot here lately. It seems like that's kind of the way that this season of Manlihood has just kind of happened. A lot of our guests this time have just kind of the way it's happened this time. A lot more of our guests have been more faith leaning, and that's this isn't a Christian podcast, but I'm a Christian, and I don't censor any of my guests from talking about whatever they want to talk about. So we've talked a lot about that this season, and I'm not afraid of that, not ashamed of that at all. Some of my guests have had different perspectives on the world, but I'm kind of glad that we've talked a lot about it this season. So I think that's a good thing. So I'm kind of excited about it too. So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, not a problem at all, man. I'm glad that you've taken the time to be on the show with us. And where can I know we've talked a little bit about Manhood Journey. Where specifically can the guys get your book?
Yeah. What I would recommend is if you want a copy of the book, go to Amazon and just look at Don't Bench Yourself or Bench Yourself. You'll find it there easily. Or you can search with my name, Kent Evans. I'll come up. If you happen to be in a role where you're like a pastor or you lead a company, or you have employees or you have volunteers or customers and you want like a bulk purchase, we have several guys who are getting cases of 50 and 100 and 200 for their staffs and their churches. Do that on our website. We can extend super massive discounts because we happen to be the publisher. So we've chosen to go down the ministry publishing route. So we've published, this is my 4th book, but it's our 6th book because we've published 2 by other authors. And so we can extend steep discounts from our own in-house stock. So if you want a case or 2, come to manhoodjourney.org and you'll find the bulk order options there. But if you just want one, hop over on Amazon, man. Snag a copy. You'll read it in a few hours. It's intended to be a 1 or 2 sitting read on purpose. And it's not complex. I don't write at a high level. I'm not trained or skilled enough to write at a high level. I tell stories. I apply them to our lives. And so I have had a lot of great feedback about the brevity of the book and its length being really short. So snag a copy, and a few hours later, you should have it behind you.
Awesome. We'll make sure to link it in the show notes as well. So if you're listening or watching on YouTube or whatever, just scroll down a little bit and you'll see the link there and you can click and snag yourself a copy. So awesome. Kent, I really appreciate the conversation with you today, man. Thank you.
Oh, the pleasure's mine, Josh. Thanks for what you do, bro.
Kent, I mean it when I say I just want to spend time with you, dude. I think that we would get into so much trouble if we could hang out in person. So I'm just going to have to drive out there, and we're just going to have to see what kind of trouble we can get into. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the time that you spend talking to me. So guys, if you want to check out Kent's book and you want to check out Manhood Journey, check out the links in the show notes. Let's go show him some love. And guys, don't forget the Manlihood Man Cave. It's our private Facebook group. Go join. If you've been a part of it and you've been just kind of lurking in the background, go post something in the group. Tell us how you're doing. Answer some questions. Respond to some of the other posts, because that group can really make a difference in people's lives. There are guys there that they might just need to hear from you. You could make a difference. Okay? It's not just about, well, I need help today. Maybe they need your answers. Maybe you could be making a difference in somebody's life. Maybe there's a guy on there that just needs to know how to balance his checkbook, or how to not get a divorce, or how to quit smoking, or just some encouragement today because he's really struggling. You could be the difference maker in his life. How good would that make you feel if you got to help a guy today? And you can do that by just going in Manlihood Man Cave, posting some encouragement, responding in the comments, and just being a part. Just joining in community with other men. They need you. So let's go do that. Maybe you need it, so you can go get it. Join the Manlihood Man Cave today. As always, guys, I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks for being part of Manlihood. Now it's time for you to rise up and take action. Join the Manlihood Man Cave, our free Facebook group, and connect with the other men on the same journey. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share that episode with a friend. For more, visit manlihood.com.